You're staring at the ceiling. You've checked your phone 3 times in the last 2 minutes. Nothing has changed. You're not hungry. You're not tired. You're not in pain. And yet something inside you is screaming. That feeling has a name. You know it too well. But here's what you don't know. The first time a human ever felt it, it nearly broke them. And the world they built to escape it, that world became everything you live in today. Boredom doesn't feel like a big deal. It feels like nothing. That's the point. It's the absence of stimulation in a brain built to never stop working. But absence in a creature like you is never neutral. Absence is a warning signal, and the first humans who felt it responded the way their brains demanded, by doing something about it, anything. Sit with that for a second. Your brain burns more energy per unit of body weight than almost any other organ in any other species. It is expensive, metabolically, brutally so. Evolution doesn't spend that kind of energy without a reason, and the reason is simple. Your brain was built to solve problems. It was built to plan, to model, to simulate, to predict. And when there are no problems to solve, it doesn't relax. It panics. Neuroscientist Mary Helen Imordino Yang at the University of Southern California has studied what happens in the brain during idle mental states. What she found was not rest. The default mode network, the circuitry that activates when you're doing nothing in particular, is among the most metabolically active systems in the entire brain. You are never not thinking. Even when you are doing nothing, your brain is constructing narratives, rehearsing social scenarios, imagining futures, revisiting the past. The moment external input drops below a certain threshold, the brain turns inward and begins generating its own content. That content is the origin of everything. Now go back. Go back before cities, before language as we know it, before fire was controlled, before tools were shaped with intention. Go back to somewhere around 2 million years ago when the genus Homo was first walking the savanna, with a brain that was, by evolutionary standards, shockingly large for its body. These early humans faced a specific kind of challenge that no creature before them had quite faced. They were smart enough to solve immediate problems faster than those problems arose. They could find food, they could find shelter, they could read the sky. And then, occasionally, there was nothing left to do. Nothing to hunt, nothing to flee. No fire to tend, no wound to treat, no rival to watch. Just the open air, the flat land, and the silence. What happened in those moments? This is where the fossil record becomes unexpectedly eloquent. Paleoanthropologist Francesco Derrico at the University of Bordeaux has spent decades analyzing the earliest known objects of deliberate non-functional creation, objects that served no immediate survival purpose. Ochre pigment rubbed onto surfaces, small shells with deliberate holes worn as pendants, geometric scratches on bone that repeat in patterns too regular to be accidental. These artifacts appear in the record at sites across Africa and the Middle East, roughly 100,000 to 300,000 years ago. Some contested evidence pushes even further back. Here's what those objects tell you. They tell you that at some point, a human being had time to kill. They had energy to spend. And the brain, confronted with the unbearable emptiness of nothing to do, did what brains do, and it invented something to do. The scratch on the bone was not survival. The ochre on the wall was not food. The shell around the neck did not protect from predators. These were the first solutions to a brand new problem. The problem of a mind that could not tolerate its own silence. Boredom, in other words, was not just felt. It was productive. Dangerously, explosively productive. Psychologist Sandy Mann at the University of Central Lancashire has argued in her research that boredom is not a deficiency state. It is a motivational state. It is the sensation of a brain demanding input of higher quality than what is currently available. It's not that nothing is happening. It's that nothing interesting enough is happening. And the gap between what is and what the brain requires is precisely the space where human creativity was born. Think about what that means. Every piece of art ever made, every story ever told, every song, every ritual, every religion, every game, every joke. Each of these things traces its ancestry back to a moment when a human being sat down with nothing to do and refused to accept that situation. The first drum was not invented by a musician. It was invented by someone who was bored and picked up a hollow log. The first story was not told by a poet. It was told by someone who had eaten and was sitting by a fire with nowhere to go and something moving inside their chest that needed to come out. You need to understand how radical this is. Every other animal on Earth, when not eating or fleeing or mating or sleeping, essentially stops. They rest, they wait. They are present in the blankness without resistance. Watch a dog lying in the sun. Watch a lizard on a rock. They are not troubled by the quiet. They have no default mode network constructing imaginary futures and demanding stimulation. You are different. You have always been different. The capacity for boredom is the shadow side of the capacity for imagination. You cannot have one without the other. A brain that can simulate worlds that don't exist yet is a brain that will suffer when the current world is not enough. You inherited both gifts together, packaged by evolution, inseparable. And here is the counterintuitive twist. The moments in human history when boredom became widespread, when whole populations found themselves with time on their hands, those moments correlate almost precisely with the greatest explosions of human creativity on record. The agricultural revolution did not just produce food, it produced something far more dangerous: leisure. For the first time in human history, large numbers of people could eat reliably without spending every waking hour hunting or foraging. They had surplus time. They had full stomachs and restless minds. And what happened next was the invention of writing, mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, formal religion, law, and architecture, all within a few thousand years in multiple civilizations simultaneously, in a species that had been anatomically modern for over 200,000 years without producing most of these things. Why then? Why all at once? Because they were bored enough to build something permanent. Now look at yourself. You live in a civilization built by people who could not tolerate inactivity. You carry in your pocket a device specifically engineered to ensure you are never without stimulation for more than a few seconds. The entire attention economy, every app, every platform, every feed, exists for one reason: because your brain inherited the same intolerance for blankness that drove the first human to scratch a pattern into bone 300,000 years ago. The algorithm knows this. It is not feeding you content, it is feeding your boredom. It is inserting itself precisely into the gap that evolution left open. The gap between your brain's demand for stimulation and the silence of a world that cannot always provide it. And the strange irony is this: the more perfectly your boredom is satisfied on demand, the less often your brain is forced to turn inward to manufacture its own content, to create rather than consume. The very circuit that produced art, language, and civilization is being quietly short-circuited every time you reach for the phone. There is something you need to sit with here. Not a solution, not a self-improvement tip, just a fact. The first human who ever got bored did not have a screen to reach for. They had only their own mind, and they used it to scratch something into the world that outlasted them by hundreds of thousands of years. You still carry that same intolerance, that same restless, demanding, expensive, extraordinary brain. It is still in there, waiting. Tonight, when you find yourself staring at the ceiling with nothing to do, you will feel the same thing that first human felt: the same itch, the same pressure, the same quiet screaming in a brain that refuses to be still. What you do with it is still up to you.